Talking about stories, do you have any story in particular that you like to share with the audience?
So I've got two that I actually would
Go
like
ahead.
to share.
Just to put a final spin to the interview.
Yeah, they're two. One's the beginning of my trading career, and one is an election story, which I think is quite relative. So at the beginning of my trading career, when I just moved to London and I was market making and prop trading, I'd been there at the firm for a month. And it was a company trip to Portugal, which I couldn't go because I was still on my South African passport. I hadn't had to get visas. I couldn't sort them out in time. And my boss at the time was market making a product called Eonia, which is interest rate futures European. And it got very little action. He hardly got hit. It was sort of just on because it was a service they were running. And he gave me a 5-minute sort of rundown of what I need to do. And I understood it. I took it on board. So anyways, they leave. The next day comes and I turn on his black box system, do the parameters as said. And within the first 5 minutes, the system gets hit. I'm like, that's strange. He doesn't get hit very often. So I turn it off. I hedge the position, turn it back on, and I get hit again. I turn it off. I hedge out. I turn it off. And I'm thinking, this is very peculiar. I make sure the parameters are right. And I decide, okay, one last time I'm going to go on. I go on again and I get absolutely smashed through. Just a huge order on all different contracts. I'm scrambling around. So it's different months we trade with the futures contracts. I'm hedging it all out, turn it off. I'm thinking, I mean, it doesn't look that bad. Okay, after the last hit, it looked bad. After the first two, I was hardly offside, so it seemed okay. And then next thing I looked, I was significantly, I think it must be about $110,000 offside. And I had to call my boss. I hadn't been there for a month in the London office, and his phone was off because they were in Portugal. I had to then call the other boss who had the emergency line, and he just told me, turn it off, don't worry about it. And this was a Friday, so I leave for the day thinking, I don't know if I'm going to have a job on the Monday. And came into the office. Of course, I got a bollocking because I didn't listen. Well, I thought I listened, but there was one parameter of the 5 that didn't change. And luckily, my job was spared. I could have very easily have lost my job on that. And the market actually, we held onto the position, and I think they made about $200,000 from it in the end. So it was a massive, massive turnaround, which I took profit from. But I always remember the story because it could have cost me my job.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's always stayed with me. Just one tweak on the black box system that I wasn't listening to could have cost me my job. But
and at times, even though this position turned out to be profitable towards at the end, it's the hardest hits that are actually going to make you the most, going to be providing the most humbling experiences for a trader, isn't it?
But this was the whole reason that I still resonate with the story. Is it stuck with me? Not, maybe it gave me better risk management tools. Maybe it gave me the idea of make sure you know what you're doing. I mean, I probably count on, maybe once, twice, very rare that I'll fat finger in a market anymore because I'm so cautious before I place trade. I'm so adamant not to make those silly mistakes now. And that probably came from that story or that lesson as a young new trader, making that error. And I also want to share a story, which is actually, let's go to elections. I was trading the S&P on election night when Trump won. And obviously I knew the whole narrative of Trump in, stocks were down. Of course, I didn't believe that. And I was expecting a rebound in stocks. And it was about 4 a.m. London time. And I was trading and the market was dropping and got to my key level. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go long. It was half size, but I went long with a 15-point stop. And the market, after I entered, was gapping towards my price. And literally less than half a tick before my price, the market just stopped. And I was thinking, what is going on here? I realized it was limit down. Less than 1 tick before my stop, the market had closed or shut until it was going to be reopened in 10 minutes, half an hour, I didn't know. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at this and I'm going, inside, I'm like, I don't have a stop. This market could open up 50 points lower, 100 points lower. My stop is rendered useless. Wherever the market opens up, that's the price I'm getting. And, I must have been sweating. It's now 4 or 5 in the morning.
How long did it take until it reopened? Do you
about
remember?
20, 25 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe a bit longer. It felt like hours.
Yeah, for sure.
That feeling where you just don't have a stop and the market's already down. X amount, 100 points.
Were you thinking about hedging the position in any way in other markets that were open at the time in parallel?
I didn't actually.
Okay.
It was, again, we're talking 5 in the morning.
You were paralyzed.
Totally paralyzed.
Yes.
5 in the morning now, and I'm just looking. I mean, if I remember, all the US markets were shut. Perhaps I could have thought to hedge with other markets. I didn't.
Yeah. And long and behold, what happened?
As the market reopened, it just ripped higher, and I saw it go higher. It's like, I've dodged a bullet. I went from basically stopped out, sweating, to in profit. I saw profit. I sold it, thought you dodged a bullet, and that was the bottom of the market. Literally the bottom of the market. And we've rallied, who wants to guess how many thousands, how many hundreds of points?
Yeah, that was really, really the bottom. And I suppose there are no regrets, but rather a sense of, kind of like taking a victory lap. It felt like a triumph to you, because you went from being exposed to massive downside if the market was to reopen with a major gap, like further gap down, to actually dodging that bullet, as you mentioned.
I was very annoyed with myself, purely because as a trader, I should have known where the limit down level was.
Correct, yes.
My stop should not have been half a point below the limit down level. But again, this shows you the old discipline. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm watching this gap pitch. I'm watching the elections. I haven't slept. I see this. It's my level. I'm on my phone, and I got my laptop out in the end, but I obviously wasn't in the office. And it just shows the ill discipline that could have cost me a fortune if this gapped another 50 points down, purely because I wasn't, I was at my desk. I didn't go through my risk parameters. I saw the opportunity. I saw the price where it was. And I think that was a big lesson for me. At the end of the day, I was not one bit upset that I was so happy to get out for, green.
Yeah.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing that was the bottom of the market to this day. So perhaps we go into election night, we get a similar story. Perhaps Biden gets in and we get a big drop in my C wave that I showed on the charts, or perhaps Trump gets in and we get that big C wave down that fools everybody. But it's just a lesson, trading that sort of volatility is not clicking buttons, which I could have learned the hard way. I definitely dodged a bullet there.